Whether or not they care to admit it, the chess pieces on the board of Walt Disney's broadcast television Game of Thrones are moving. In the last few days, we've seen several offers come in from third parties like Nexstar and Byron Allen. We talked about that on the Sunday Live show. And if what we're hearing is true about the Walt Disney Company perhaps looking to cut back its massive DAS or Disney Advertising sales force and replace them with AI of all things, something that we quite frankly predicted a little bit a few months ago was coming. And meanwhile, places like Nexstar, one of the companies making an offer to Disney on ABC, is looking to add advertising sales executives to their ranks. Maybe that process is just a little further along than we've given them credit for. Oh, and by the way, about that new Monday Night Football thing, this will be the first video in a 3-part mini-series that will all drop within the next 24 hours right here on Valiant Renegade, so make sure you set your notifications and stay tuned for all of those. But for now, let's get into it. Renegade Online. Well, folks, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video, not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. We've got a lot to discuss, and joining me today to talk about this whole issue with the sale of ABC, along with other linear broadcast properties of Disney like Nat Geo and FX. What does this mean? What about Nexstar? What about Byron Allen? What is Disney going to do with DAS, the Disney Advertising Service? Glad to have these two gentlemen aboard. Please welcome in from thatparkplace.com. It's WDW Pro and our other good friend, KMG, also known as Kiss My Grits. What is up, gentlemen?
Happy to be here.
Hello.
Good to see you. Well, you guys did a video on Monday, and this is kind of a follow-up to this because I had some additional thoughts. We had some additional news come since then. Wanted to remind folks of some things that I talked about previously, especially around this interesting issue of what's going to happen with DAS and how Disney is trying to integrate artificial intelligence into ad sales as this changing landscape of streaming and linear comes around. But you guys had a great conversation earlier. You want to take a couple of minutes to kind of bring folks up to speed on that just real quick?
Well, we had it was a very pleasant conversation about a paradigm shift with the Walt Disney Company, not only in terms of their potential attempts at offloading linear broadcast television, but also in terms of the evolution for Disney in modifying how they're making their money for ad revenue. Mm-hmm. Now, the funny thing about that is, of course, we had this video, we brought out this exclusive information, and then you received information about an hour later getting into this artificial intelligence situation. We said, well, we've got to do a video on Valiant's channel now. I just had to be in on this. But KMG is highly knowledgeable in this area, and so it's a real joy to get to talk with him and be guided through, I guess, what is happening with Disney. It's much bigger than I think most people assume when they hear ABC is for sale. Mm-hmm. This is massive. It will have major implications with sports broadcasting. It'll have major implications on marketing in general across the industry. It's going to have a ripple effect, CBS, NBC, and there's just no telling where all this goes except for Disney needs money, and I guess this is the way we're going to get to it.
Yes, cutting out the middlemen, as it were. In that case, maybe, unfortunately, a lot of people at DAS, Disney Advertising Sales, and then replacing it with things like AI. But you mentioned sports broadcasting, so let me bring this up first. So earlier on Monday, we got this breaking, and this is something new for Disney. And of course, as the headline suggests, it's certainly related to the lack of content that they see forthcoming due to the strikes in Hollywood. And they're shifting a lot of that Monday night schedule back to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays in favor of live sports broadcasting. And what are they doing? In the midst of talking about selling ABC, they're entertaining offers, at least on the surface, from places like Nexstar, people like Byron Allen. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. Disney has gone ahead and decided to let's simulcast all of Monday Night Football starting October 2nd all the way through December 18th, both on ESPN and ABC, which if people have been watching NFL long enough, they remember, well, Monday Night Football used to be on ABC. That's where it started. That was the big thing. And then it was shuffled off to exclusively ESPN so that Disney could help build subscribership over there for that pay TV model, which, of course, they're also making a ton of ad revenue on. Now they're simulcasting it. Grits, let me ask you, what's coming down the pike here? I mean, how important is live sports to ABC, to ESPN as part of their overall enterprise value?
I mean, it's huge. I mean, when you look at the industry and you read the trade reports of what the advertisers are still looking to buy, it's live sports. I mean, that is especially football, whether it be NFL or college football. It is the only must-see TV out there that audiences still tune in live for. And, for advertisers, that is prime real estate.
And you're telling me the Oscars is not drawing the audience it once did?
The Academy thinks that they're still drawing the same audience that they did,
outside of Los Angeles and New York, not much.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I did a little bit of research and, looking at the rates that ESPN has been getting for Monday Night Football, like specifically last year, they were getting a 30-second commercial spot around $400,000 to $500,000 for that 30-second spot. So, when you want to talk about how valuable, I mean, this is just Monday Night Football, and then you want to also loop in the ABC and what they're getting with college football. It is very, very premium, and it's significant to their business.
There's live sports, and then there's literally everything else. I saw a statistic not long ago that suggested that somewhere around, I think, something like 80 to 90 of the top 100 pieces of most watched television content year to date through the first half of the year, at least through the end of the second quarter, call it June 30th, live sports.
Yes.
80 to 90 of the top 100 were live sports. So the reason, folks, we bring this up is not just about Disney getting desperate to find content for what they're doing here, but Grits, I would suggest, or at least, I would ask you, I would think that with Disney's expansion, going from an ESPN-only audience to an ABC over-the-air broadcast audience, which, granted, probably most of the people watching this type of programming is very settled in with watching it on ESPN. I don't know how much more the ABC footprint expands it realistically to the sports fans that are already there. But certainly this would seem to me that ABC would be able to increase, even if with the upfronts they've already gotten on these Monday Night Football games, they would probably be able to go back to some of these advertisers and say, look, this is what we're doing. We're going to need a little more. Am I right on that? Or are they stuck in with what they got?
No, they're not stuck. I mean, and trust me, they when they decided this is what they were going to do going forward with the simulcast, they went back out to all of the advertisers that had bought in Monday Night Football and said, hey, guess what? We're going to give you some additional eyeballs. Like we're going to give you an opportunity to further extend, your message. Maybe somebody misses it, in one of the commercial spots on ESPN, but then they happen to see it on ABC.
Yep.
Now, are the advertisers going to pay more money? That's all going to depend on the relationship that Disney has with that advertiser. Because, some advertisers are going to be like, well, I'm already paying you so much, you should be giving this to me for free. But they will be able to get some incremental revenue, no doubt.
I was going to say, I know the way these contracts, my understanding is how they've worked for years is that at the end of the day, it comes down to where did the audience fall in, right? Yeah. So if you're saying that I'm going to spend $500,000 for a 30-second ad on Monday Night Football, Disney is promising me at least 10 million viewers. Now, if 6 million show up, a lot of times these advertisers get some kind of refund to one degree or another. And I'm sure going the other way, if Disney is able to increase viewership on these Monday Night Football games to say instead of 10 million to maybe 12 to 13, they might be able to command a little bit more of a back end. Hey, you got 30% more exposure than we promised. That's in the contract. We get a little bit more of a bump. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what's interesting here, and Valiant, you talked about this in some earlier videos a few months ago, when Disney just got finished with their upfronts. And in the upfronts, with the advertisers, you negotiate basically a sort of a certain rate that they're going to agree to pay for, the broadcast year. And there are, rates that are, rates differ by program. So, a Monday Night Football CPM is going to be completely different than a CPM within The Bachelor or Dancing with the Stars.
Right.
So what interests me is if they did not know when these upfronts were finished and, signed on the dotted line, if they didn't know that they were going to have to completely shift their entire programming schedule and fill it with Monday Night Football, then you're going to have to go back to the negotiating table with some of these advertisers, because whatever the programming was supposed to be on Monday night, some advertisers may have already bought into what they assumed were going to be the shows running on Monday night.
Right.
But now you've got Monday Night Football, which is a premium product. Maybe not necessarily the scripted programming or reality shows that they were, intending to air. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know necessarily what they're having to do to renegotiate this, but it's a fair question to ask. How? I could say if I'm the Disney ad sales executives, I'm treating this as, hey, like we're offering you now a premium spot versus what you were getting before. Like, this is going to require, which in the business it's called scatter revenue. So any revenue that is not generated in the upfronts is considered scatter.
Yeah. And that plays into a lot of what's going on. And the reason we set all that up, because I think that story in itself was really fascinating to me, but it ties directly into what you guys were talking about this afternoon and what I wanted to get into tonight. And that is, how is this going to impact a potential sale of ABC? See, and this is some of the debate. We talked about this Sunday. Byron Allen, and throw, of course, Nexstar in there. And, of course, we've seen some information from Nexstar suggesting that they are actively looking to hire a lot of new advertising sales execs. They're looking to expand their advertising footprint, which is curious to me. If Disney is allegedly maybe backing down and Nexstar is assuming it's ramping up, then I think that this ABC deal may be further down the pike than either party is willing to admit, which is perfectly understandable. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, and especially with Disney seemingly committing a huge slate of Monday Night Football to ABC for the next several weeks, all the way through mid-December, almost to Christmas. That suggests any sale might not take place until the first of the year or sometime down the road. And, of course, it would take at least that long to go through regulatory scrutiny. But here we got this, Byron Allen makes a bid, and he puts the number out there for $10 billion. I don't know if we know what Nexstar's actual bid was. But the question, of course, we had to ask is, what really is the value of ABC, FX, and Nat Geo if Disney retains the sports broadcasting? Because the question becomes, are they obligated to actually broadcast things on ABC for live sports? That is unclear at best. Yep. Certainly Monday Night Football is not obligated to ABC. This is something that Disney chose to do. And of course, the NFL, Roger Goodell, and the team owners are not going to balk at that. It expands the footprint. But at the same time, if they occasionally will broadcast Major League Baseball, NBA, or some of these other sports leagues, talking about looking at, maybe seeing some SEC games on ABC potentially down the road as the SEC is expanding to 16 teams. The addition of Texas and Oklahoma is huge. The SEC is now basically going to represent probably 50% or more of college football going forward. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Followed by the Big Ten is maybe 40%, and then everybody else is the last 10%. Every other conference out there, if you're not the Big Ten or the SEC, you're in the toilet. Sorry, you're on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
That's where it's moving to. The SEC is homed on ESPN and the SEC network, which is part of Disney. I don't know if Disney is obligated to broadcast anything on ABC. If they decide to pull everything back, what really is the value, the enterprise value of ABC, FX, and Nat Geo if no live sports are going to go with it? And to remind folks, it was Bob Iger himself back in July, just 2 months ago, sitting down doing an interview with CNBC the morning after it was announced he was renewed through the end of 2026 as CEO, that he was A, looking to sell linear, and B, that sports, live sports was absolutely, he made it very clear that live sports was core to Disney, and he didn't seem to have any interest in parting ways. Where are we at with this ABC thing?
So there's two things that I'd like to bring up here. Mm-hmm. Number one is that if sports do not stay with ABC to any significant degree, then the overall value for ABC is so diminished that it's incredible. Because not only do you lose just the overall value of the sports leaving the network, but you're buying easily then the lesser of the big three networks. And it's not even close. Right. Because CBS still has sports, NBC still has sports, and you're telling me you're going to buy a network that has no sports? Like, what's the point of buying the network at that? That makes no sense. The other thing that's interesting about this, after KMG and I did the video yesterday, we got word that morale within Disney advertising is absolutely as rock bottom as it can be. Now, here's what's fascinating about that in terms of what you're discussing right now. Let's say that some of these sports packages still have to stay on ABC. Let's say that some of the contracts are written in such a way that they're going to stay there.
Yep, maybe a few.
You're going to have ABC ad reps managing the migration of these over to ESPN, and regardless of how this works, but you're going to have people who know their jobs are about to be cut out, who are having to migrate these ad sales over. You're going to have the lowest morale individuals with the least incentive whatsoever to get you your top dollar for Disney navigating this. And it's remarkable.
A couple of things, you referred to that career listing with Nexstar Media. Yeah. And, I do find that very interesting. Let's just call it purely coincidental at this point. We have no idea why they are expanding their ad sales force nationwide, but, we can speculate. But I do think with the live sports contract, specifically with ABC, we don't know what the legal language says. If I'm the SEC, I would think that the SEC is probably going to want to know. They're definitely going to have to be told immediately. All right, well, who is this potential buyer that is going to be taking ABC? Are they going to make them? Are they, like we just said, just going to shift the contracts, make the new buyer? The new buyer is going to honor them. If I'm the buyer, if I'm Nexstar, Byron Allen, I would want to get those live sports. I would do everything.
Or I'd cut my price in half.
Oh yeah, exactly. Is this an opportunity for the SEC and the ACC as well? Let's not forget them, because they're also exclusive to ESPN.
Yep. The ACC network is part of Disney.
Yes. So is that an opportunity for them? Like, are they going to go back to Disney and say, well, you offered us a deal on ABC, for additional eyeballs. Now we're no longer getting that. And okay, what are you going to give us? What's the backup plan? Are you telling us that now we're going to have one of our games broadcast on Disney Plus going forward? Okay, well, what's the audience guarantee for Disney Plus?
And that's a great thing too, because the idea that you could take everything that's on ABC and move it to ESPN, unlikely. So then you have to think about, okay, what secondary networks can it go to, or secondary channels? Is anybody going to be happy with their game being on ESPN2 or a further down the line ESPN network versus being on ABC? No.
Well, as long as it's in the basic cable package. So if you've got ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, If those are all in your basic cable package, then you've got a lot there. The other thing that Disney is going to try to do is to take this opportunity to shift the dynamic for some of the, let's say, the lesser viewed games, right? Because let's face it, yes, the SEC is huge, but there's a big difference between next year Texas versus OU, or having Florida, Georgia, right, versus Vanderbilt, South Carolina. So you can take that Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and you can push it down the line, maybe even to ESPN Plus, which is what they're obviously they're trying to gravitate towards, a DTC ESPN system. So Disney, I think right now, is trying to make room to accommodate all of this moving forward. I don't think they re-signed a contract with the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, last year, if I'm not mistaken, for a new 10-year deal, and didn't have something in there about DTC streaming. I guarantee you they did.
Oh, it absolutely did. And another thing to point out, as far as the rates that you pay on broadcast versus cable versus streaming, those are all three different rates. Yep.
And by the way, what are the two biggest teams viewership-wise in the ACC? Clemson. FSU and Clemson. Yes, Florida State and Clemson. Where was Florida State was fixing to do what? Leave the ACC. Clemson was thinking about leaving the ACC, and they were thinking about petitioning the SEC. Disney'd be all in favor of that, because then they could dump their ACC contract and have everything in the SEC.